corruption in the health sector as well as in the public distribution system. He has been actively serving as an advisory member in various organizations working in the fields of social sector developments in the country. He is also the recipient of many state and national awards. Dr. Balasubramaniam, I'm very glad to mention that he is currently the full-time member HR in the Capacity Building Commission of the Government of India under the Prime Minister's office. Inspired by the message of Swami Vivekananda, he sees his life's mission as building a resurgent India by inspiring leadership in the youth of the country. With this brief introduction, I invite Dr. Balasubramaniam to deliver the talk. Over to Dr. Balasubramaniam, sir.
Thank you, Dr. Honaigoda, for inviting me to share some thoughts on this fascinating subject. And I'm glad to know that the JSS SND University is having a series of talks called Impact Series, and I'm sure listening to them will possibly have a great impact on the younger generation of this country. The topic, as suggested by the university, is a very fascinating one. When I first received it, I was wondering why this particular topic. And then I realized that there cannot be a more relevant topic than this. In a country which is seeing enormous transition, enormous growth, fascinating future, but along with that, huge challenges that we are seeing across India today and rest of the world. Second, a country where possibly one of the finest post-independent policies that's ever been introduced, a national education policy in the context of the policy. And third, a renewed interest around the world, definitely so in India, on the context of leadership itself. So I'm going to frame my discussion today around three, I would say, major areas of interest that's been embedded in this title. So the first would be social change, which means understanding society and what it is, what do we want it to become, and therefore what is the change that one aspires. So what is social change that we're talking about? Each of us might have a different understanding of it, but I would like to share what I believe has to be the lens through which we can see societal change. The second, again, fascinatingly, considering the educational landscape, we need to understand why are we connecting social change to education in a world, in a country especially, but definitely around the world too, where education is primarily seen as a tool, an instrument for bettering employment, where education is linked to just employment, and then suddenly NEP emerges, where it throws open the context of beyond employment for life itself. And so in that context, how does that education lead to social change? But more importantly, amidst all this, who is to lead this? Who is to be the academic leader? Who is to be the societal leader? Who can mesh the two? And what would he look like? And how would leadership look like in this context? So I'm going to talk of three major areas and then see how I can try to seamlessly connect them together. We need to understand, I'll first begin with society, as I said. And what are we going through? Now look, just take an unbiased observational look around the world today. We have challenges in countries like Syria, to Afghanistan, to economic collapses in Sri Lanka, to the way Nepal is struggling. Our neighborhood is full of issues. Within the country, we have enormous polarization. Each one has an interpretation of himself and his religion, and therefore we don't agree on each other. And the only way we think we can respond to that is silence the other person's argument by silencing the person himself. So enormous tensions, frictions. So on one side, society going through transition constructively, but being weighed down by this destructive episodes that keep happening. Whether it is the United States, whether it is a simple thing like women's choices, reproductive choices, and that being crushed by the state, or whatever we look at, any different kinds of problems, or what we're seeing in UK today, where the political leadership is constantly being, it's a churning that's happening. So everywhere around the world, you see society in enormous flux. So I would like to bucket society as it exists today in three problematic buckets, or three crises that we, the people living in society, have created for ourselves. The first bucket is the ecological crisis we have fashioned. We have ruined the planet. Whether we like it or not, we're consuming the planet's resources at the rate of, what we need for a year, we finish in 4 months. And then the remaining 8 months, we're eating into the future. So we have created a society which is ecologically unsustainable. And then we talk of sustainable development goals. It's a very paradox in the very thinking of that, because we live a lifestyle which is absolutely unsustainable, but then we expect it to be sustainable. Even small examples I'd like to give. A lot of young people are there in this audience. If I were to pose a question to all of you and say, how many pairs of jeans you have? And I'm pretty sure each of you will say, I have two, I have three, depending on whatever you have today. And then the same youngsters would possibly standing in protest, saying that we must all be carbon neutral, we must all be ecologically friendly. What we may not realize is every pair of pant or jeans that we buy takes 8,500 liters of water to produce. So which means every time I take a decision to buy an extra pair of clothing which I don't need, and remember, the fashion industry is possibly the root cause of the highest carbon footprint in this world, around 34 to 36% of our carbon footprint comes from the fashion industry. And we think it's automobiles, aeroplanes, etc. They also contribute. But the highest contributor is those personal choices that we make leading to the growth of the industry. Or even look at it, when I was a child, I remember we would buy a refill at 20 paise or 15 paise and keep using the refill. And if the refill is over, we try to fill it with ink and put the nib back and use it. Today, you throw the pen and take a new pen. And all the plastic in the pen is just plastic in the pen. So we don't even think of the choices we make. Simple choices like that can actually contribute to the ecological crisis that the world is facing. Or every time a new iPhone comes out or a cell phone comes out, model cell phone comes out, we think that we have to own it. Our phone is working fine, but we still want the next model. And we are making choices. So we are all talking about electric vehicles, but very few of us think about what's going to happen to all the lithium or the lithium batteries after they exhaust their life, and what are we going to do with it, how are we going to dispose it. So all these difficult choices to be made, and then we talk of sustainability. But the bottom line is we are creating a world of ecological crisis, and we are responsible for it. The second crisis, which is also very painful, and COVID exposed it tremendously for us, is a socio-economic crisis that we're facing. In our own country, we are one of those few countries in the world, or possibly the only country in the world, which managed COVID, despite whatever everybody says. Evidentially speaking, possibly India managed it the best. Whether it was in terms of vaccinating our people, whether in terms of managing, we had challenges. Nobody can dispute it, but we recovered and we managed it. But if you look around the world, what it exposed was the fact that in those 2 years of severe COVID around the world, the top, whether it's Jeff Bezos or Elon Musk, they made so much wealth that is unthinkable. The top 1% have made so much wealth during those 2 years, which they could never have made in a pre-COVID situation. They made enough wealth that 10 times more than what they were normally making. But that's not, I don't grudge people who make money. But my worry is the people who were unable to even live their regular existence in those 2 years. Just imagine the poor who became poorer will take 10 more years to reach pre-COVID levels. That's the enormity of the socio-economic inequity that we have created for ourselves. The gap between the rich and the poor is widening constantly. The gap between the upper class and so-called lower class, the politically superior, the politically inferior, the educationally superior, educationally inferior. We have created so many divides amongst ourselves in society, whether it's religious divide, political divide, social divide, economic divide, now the digital divide. Or the divide is real, or the rural and urban geographical divide. But we have created such divides that the gap between the haves and the have-nots in every sense is widening. So the crisis of socio-economic crisis that we have created for ourselves, again, it's man-made. The current economic model contributes to it and we don't question it. We live with it because some of us benefit by it. Now, the third crisis that created, more disturbing to me, is the crisis of the self. And the self or the individual is such an enormously important part of society. An aggregation of we individuals is what makes society. And me, the self, if I'm under crisis, I'm going to contribute crisis to society. If there's a Kurukshetra inside me, obviously I'll create a Kurukshetra outside me also. So these three crises in society. And if that is it, social change, in my opinion, should be to remediate these three crises. The first social change should be to look at our own consumption patterns, our planet, and protecting the planet and its interest as much as the people inside the planet. I'm not saying economic growth is bad. We all need economic growth to fight poverty. India has done a great job of it the last 5 to 10 years, but we can't stop it. At the same time, we need to explore what alternatives are there. What is the societal change that can bring us a balance of people, planet, profits, and peace? And can education contribute to this? That's a connection I would like to make later. Now, if you look at the education, and coming back to the next part of my talk, is what is the context of education? Now, if you look at India in the last 75 years, we have all evolved with a particular model in mind and preparing people for that model. Whether it is our own nation in pursuit of science and technology for understanding how to take care of our citizens, or to set up our factories in the public sector and to grow it, whatever you take, our education is wired or engineered by default to just take over the residue of what the British left us. So if you can call it a macularized education framework, we just repeated it. All that we changed was instead of working for the British, we work for Indians. But model of thinking, the model of falling in line, compliance and conformity was a standardized norm of education itself. But today, the national education policy, like I mentioned earlier, one of the finest policies in post-independent India, and I think will be the legacy or the milestone that we can all remember India and this policy by, is suddenly changed the framework. Now, India civilizationally was an enormous power. Let's not forget, if you look at Angus Madison's report, World Economy Millennial Perspective, where he quotes about India growing constantly and continuously from 080 to 1600, and then desperately slipping rapidly. So we were 38% of the global GDP. I'm not trying to argue that being globally economic superpower will matter. But then why were we such a superpower is not because we focus on making money, but we focus on building the people who could make the money. We focus on investing on human and social capital that created enormously powerful economic consequence. And that is why India as a nation grew. And then the macularized model destroyed the Indianness in us. The Bharatiyata that we are known for, which created this human and social capital, was dismantled and remantled with a conforming slavish mentality thinking Indian. And we just inherited that model and took it forward for 75 years. Now we have the courage to say that is not good enough for our youngsters, and we want to refabricate a new economic policy, new education policy. And this new education policy goes back to building on where India left off. Indian education was known and very well renowned for the way we crafted it. We crafted an education system which promoted both repetitive thinking. That is why we could do a lot of rote memorization, whether it was a Gurukula system where you would repeat the mantras. But repetition was not the only thing. Repetition was accompanied by deep reflection, and learning was immersive throughout the entire stay in the Gurukula. The child would grow under the tutelage of a guru or several gurus and immerse himself in the university called life and all the requirements of life. Well, he would learn something and repeat it to memorize it, but then they would reflect as a group and ask themselves what are they learning. So we had this unique combination of reflective and repetitive thinking, which enormously enabled us. But then later on, the conformity demand made it only repetitive. So if you look at our education or our examination system, it is built around testing and assessing our young people's repetitive capacity. So you write an examination, I teach you something. If you can repeat what I taught you and put it exactly as I taught you, I'll give you A plus. If you were to independently think on your own and then be creative, I'll say, oh, this fellow is Adhika Prasangi. And then we punish him for that. But I think the whole objective I'm trying to talk is a new education policy now reverses it, focuses on building the individual in its completeness, enormous stress on humanities and concern for society, embedding in us the capability to acquire the multiple intelligences, making us, teaching us how to lead ourselves to learn, as well as learning how to lead ourselves. bringing this unique combination into it. Our education systems have to understand it, internalize it, and then roll it out. But the fact is, the policy is concealed. So we are creating the framework. So what we are today is education system driven towards employment. What the change that is going to create is creating enabling environments for creative, independent entrepreneurial thinkers who can fashion this kind of state. So we have an opportunity here. So this is the educational ecosystem and landscape that we're thinking about, but for which we need a new DNA. And I'll talk about it in a few minutes. And more importantly, coming to the third area, the area of leadership. Now, leadership traditionally has been confused with authority and power. I completely disagree. And my understanding of leadership is you can never be a leader. Being a leader is a myth. I think the noun form of the word in my mind doesn't exist. What exists is the verb form, the action part. So to me, it is not about being a leader or becoming a leader. It's about our educational systems helping us to learn how to exercise leadership. Exercising leadership is very different from becoming a leader. People confuse becoming a leader to occupying positions of authority. A vice chancellor is the position of authority in a university. He doesn't necessarily have to lead that institution. He just heads the institution. He holds a position of authority in the institution. A director, a president, or a CEO of a company, they're all very important positions and we need them. We need them to maintain order, to run the institution, set direction, goals. But they are not institutions which are necessarily going to lead. Can I make a request for others to mute their microphones because I think there's too much of disturbance. That will help. Thank you. So continuing what I'm saying is that to me leadership is an action. It's an activity. ದಯವಿಟ್ಟು ಬೇರೆಯವರೆಲ್ಲ ಮ್ಯೂಟ್ ಮಾಡ್ಕೊಂತೀರಾ ಸ್ವಲ್ಪ ತುಂಬಾ ಡಿಸ್ಟರ್ಬೆನ್ಸ್ ಇದೆ. So for me, what does leadership really mean? Leadership to me is about mobilizing, learning how to bring people together. It is not about polarizing, it's not about separating or fragmenting. It is about getting people together. Why do you mobilize? Why do you bring people together, including yourself? How do you mobilize yourself and everybody around you? But why do you do it? And do it for what? And in the context of what I'm talking today, societal change, leadership is about mobilizing ourselves and our resources to do something societally constructive. And there is no guarantee we can achieve it. Tomorrow we might decide to do something societally constructive, but there is no 100% assurance that we'll actually achieve in a task. But despite that, inspiring ourselves to do it. So we need that kind of education, which creates leaders who will be able to inspire themselves despite failures of everyday life, despite the challenges they face, and still lead on, take it forward till they succeed. You know, the beautiful way in which Swami Vivekananda captures it when he says, arise, awake, and stop not till the goal is reached. That means we have a clear purpose of life, and with the purpose of societal change, education should give us that courage, that empowerment to first decide I want to arise, to stay awake and not just go back to sleep after being aroused. No, it's very easy to be inspired for 3 days and then say, ಭಾಷಣ ಕೊಟ್ಟ ತಕ್ಷಣ ಚೆನ್ನಾಗಿತ್ತು ಸರ್, ಬಹಳ ಉತ್ಸಾಹ ಬಂತು, ಬಟ್ 2 ದಿನ ಆದ್ಮೇಲೆ ಉತ್ಸಾಹ ಕರಗೋಗುತ್ತೆ. Changing that, staying inspired, which means we are our own inspiration. Inspiration that comes from outside will die away very fast, but inspiration that comes from the inner power that we can generate possibly stays with us forever. And generating that kind of inspiration, applying it for societal change, that is a real leadership that we can think of. And like what Swamiji wrote in a letter to the Maharaja of Mysore, he writes it so beautifully. He says, the vanities of life are transient, but he alone lives for others. The rest are more dead than alive. But the kind of leadership I am describing, the leadership which our educational system can enable to create, the leadership which can drive people for social change, is a leadership which is selfless, which doesn't think about himself or herself, which thinks about mobilizing everybody for society's good. It thinks about that selfless manifestation of that energy, that action, which brings and promotes about goodness around us. Now, and that is a leadership which can solve these 3 crises I spoke about. Let's now dive a little deeper into the whole thing. Now, going back to education, what kind of education can create that? What is the landscape we need to build for which we need the leaders? So it's a fascinating circular combination. You have extraordinary leaders who will create that educational landscape, maximize the benefit of NEP, build a better society. If society is great, you actually don't, it will automatically mean it will create a good education system and people to drive society. So they're all interconnected. What comes first? It's a chicken and egg story. Let us imagine that the education institutions should now have an extraordinary generation of leaders which will drive this change, begin this change, and then it will take off, the cycle will take off. So what is it that we need to look at in the educational system? There are three or four things I would like to talk about, and especially since so many young people are there in this audience, and I understand several of them from university and both in JSS and outside. Today's youth are very restless. Today's youth are not like my generation or the previous generation or my next generation even. Today you're not satisfied with the answers that we can give you. You're restless to discover the truth. Unfortunately, many of you discover the truth from Wikipedia and the internet. Very few of you discover the truth by self-experience. So you have to transition and ask yourself, how do I really understand what I'm learning? Is it even valid? Is it authentic? Is it even actually real? And that is why today you have to worry about news and worry about fake news. Because both are generated by people of our generation. And let's not forget it. The same young man who can filter out fake news is also the guy who creates it. So we have to look at how do we really look at today's youth and satisfy them. And here I would like to say, research around the world shows what kind of young people will succeed, what kind of young people will actually uh, be the change makers of tomorrow. What are those qualities that they need? And therefore, what is it that our educational system should provide for those young people? So today, evidence shows that people with these four abilities or qualities are the ones who succeed. Today, it's not about the degrees you get, and youth are not looking at degrees alone. Degrees are attractive, but degrees are not the only measure of a person's competence. Real skill sets that we have, along with the mindset in which we apply those skill sets, is what makes a difference. And we are already in a generation where institutions like Amazon and Google, and apparently these two I understand from young friends of mine, are the most in demand for a job. Somebody told me there's hundreds of YouTube videos of how to get a job in Amazon, how to get a job in Google. It's so funny. We don't have a video for Indians to show how to create our own Amazon or our own Google, but we have the same colonial leftover of wanting to work for somebody else that we have videos to watch and learn from. Well, I don't criticize anything. That's a reality that we live in. Hopefully, this will change that. The NEP will change that. Now, we are in a generation, and if you look at it, these two institutions have said we are not going to look for qualifications anymore. It's not your PhDs, it's not your masters that matter. What matters are your ability to actually be skilled in a certain set of things. So the reality of today is today's world demands a very new set of skill sets. The first skill set that we have is that today's world demands is how disruptive can you be? Disruption is not destruction. There's a very big difference between the two. Today's youth are very easily inspired to be destructive. But what we need are a set of young people who can actually disrupt. Disruption means not conforming to the demands of what everyday existence means. If you want to create a new society, you can't do it from the same mold of society that you belong to. You have to, like Einstein said, you can't solve a problem from the same space in which you created it. You've got to come out of it, emerge out of it. And today's young people need an education or are demanding an education where we can train them to be disruptive. If 30 years ago in the classroom they would say, Kai kattu bai muchu, today we say, Kai bichu bai tegi. That is what we need. We need a generation of young people who have the courage to speak their mind, who have the ability to articulate differences in a polite way, who have the vision to be different. It takes a lot of dare to do that. And that is the disruption we need. The next quality we need today is innovation. Innovation is not breakthrough innovation where you do something phenomenally different. Today's world is incremental innovation. One step at a time. By the time you take 10 steps, it will be remarkable. But every step matters. And today you have to look for how innovative can you be, how different can you be, how innovative can you be. And innovation is so critical because you belong to a generation of technology. You've all grown up in the technology generation. Many of us, for us, a telephone just meant the big black box and we use it. And sometimes I even remember as a child when I first heard a phone ring in a relative's house, I picked it, but I held it reverse. The mouthpiece was over my ear and the earpiece was over my mouth. And I was wondering why is the noise coming from near my mouth? That is the reality. Today, it's not like that. You're all born into technology, and every day you sort of adapt, relearn, and constantly contribute and build to this technology. It is my generation which can't keep track, but your generation is so comfortable with it. And that is the world that we belong to. That's a reality. So if you're not in the digital world, digital ecosystem, it's not just engineers, it's everybody who's every young man today between 15 and 25 is in that space of sweet spot which can actually change the way the world can lead itself, I believe. And so to me, it's disruption, innovation, and the third quality, and it's a very important quality, is about collaboration. If one generation ago we were all achievers were individuals. We would always look at one person and say, look at how great he is. Today, one man can never be great. One man can only be part of a team which is actually being led by him to become great. So leadership is no longer about I being somebody extraordinary or unusual. Leadership is about how do I enable others to discover the leaders in them. And collaboration and teamwork is embedded in the way world functions today. You can never achieve what you want to achieve on your own. You need people with you. You need teams with you. So people who understand how to disrupt, people who understand how to innovate, people who understand how to collaborate are people who are going to make the difference. Unfortunately, our university education doesn't prepare you for this. It prepares you in algebra, physics, chemistry, civil engineering, mechanical engineering, biotechnology, etc. And people go for it. But you should look for when you choose a university that you can also have this space where you're allowed to be reflective and immersive, where you're allowed to be disruptive and innovative, where you're allowed to collaborate as that's where group works and all those exercises are now being introduced. NEP thinks of all this. The National Education Policy is space for all this. And when universities design their institutional development plans, they're expected to keep all this in mind. And with that in mind, they can craft a great future for our young people. The last quality, you may not be able to disrupt enough. Let's say you're not able to innovate enough. You may not be able to collaborate as much as you would like. But then, if you can collaborate enough to lead such teams of disruptors and innovators, if you can put together collaborators, disruptors, and innovators, stick them together and get the collective power to express itself, that is leadership. And young people today have to be trained, and that's a landscape we need to create. Today's educational landscape has to build this, and this is the expectation of young people. To do this, look at the kind of people you need to teach. So I believe you don't even need people to teach. Teaching has gone on for too long in this country. What we need are not teachers anymore. And that is what the faculty of today's education landscape have to understand. What we need are learning facilitators. We need to teach our young people how not to, I'll reframe it. We need to teach our young people how to keep learning all the time. Learning doesn't have to be hierarchical. It doesn't have to come from your all-knowing professor to you. It can be co-created in classrooms. Classrooms have to be those spaces where problems are co-discovered and the facilitator or the faculty helps unpack it and collectively you discover a solution where everybody learns. So it's a great demand of faculty. Faculty for generations have thought that they are all people who can tell what to be done are suddenly discovering what could be done together. So faculty have to learn to be also innovative now. Faculty have to learn how to disrupt classrooms, how to flip the classroom. That's why you have this concept of flipped classrooms now. Faculty have to learn how to collaborate with the student to find what can be taught and how it can be learned. So it's a very new ecosystem for faculty. And we are living in a world, COVID taught us that physical classrooms alone may not be enough. We need to create digital learning ecosystems. We need to create a balanced world of the physical with digital. We need to understand hybridized education models. And we need to be lifelong learners as faculty. No longer can we say, I have learned it and I can teach it. I remember people for 30 years would have possibly given the same notes. Now, I have a fascinating story I was told by the great literary figure Prabhu Shankar of Mysore. He was telling me that story ಕನ್ನಡದಲ್ಲಿ ಹೇಳಿದ್ರೆ ಅದಕ್ಕೆ ನಿಜವಾದ ಖುಷಿ ಸಿಗೋದು, but I'll tell it in English because I know a lot of people are there from the English speaking audience in this group. He was telling me, when he was doing his BA in Mysore University, he fell asleep in class. And this Kannada professor got very upset with him. And he said, "What is this, Prabhu Shankar? You're sleeping in my class. Do you know what I'm teaching now? How much you have missed? Why don't you take notes like all the other students in our class? This is in BA." And Prabhu Shankar told him, "Sir, don't worry, I won't miss anything." And he was quite amused, the professor. He said, "What do you mean? Why do you think you won't miss my class? Anything in my class?" He said, "Sir, my father also took Kannada and you were also teaching at that time. And he has kept his notes very safely and given it to me. You're teaching exactly what you taught my father. So that note is safe, so I don't need to attend your class at all, sir." And though it might have been a joke or even be real, I don't know. But that's a reality for some of us. We people who in the faculty space think that we can keep delivering the same thing over and over to our students. But times have changed, contexts have changed. Not only content of what we deliver has changed, the way we can transact with these adults today have changed. So adult learning and andragogies are not just fashion statements. We need to be constantly on top of it if we have to use the education landscape for something meaningful for the students. So the students have changed, faculty have to change. The content that we deliver to them has to be driven towards these kind of ways of doing it. The way we transact has changed. No longer can classrooms be one-way dialogues. We call it a dialogue, but it's usually one way. So we need to make it learning spaces. We need to bring in reflective opportunities for students. We need to immerse them in everyday problems of life. You can teach mathematics also as a application-based science, not just as a science to be learned for sake of passing an exam. So there's so many different things that are coming in the space of transactions today. How do you transact knowledge in a way in which gets co-created is a new art. We need to redefine that and teach our teachers to do that. So the content is evolving, the way content is delivered is evolving. Infrastructural needs are evolving. Maybe brick and mortar institutions over time may not be as relevant as they are today. They'll never lose its relevance because educational institutions and universities are not just for knowledge. It is for creating these experiences. It is for creating these relationships. We all remember our friends. We all remember the social ecosystem we operated in our colleges. Maybe informational learning is a small part which can be hybridized and given out. But the remaining has to be the ecosystems of physical. So infrastructure has to allow these things to happen. All this requires enormous leadership from heads of academic institutions. So academic landscape cannot be shifted by just rules, policies, or slogans, or orders on the top, or circulars issued by the ministry. They have to be shaped, crafted by enormously future-looking, visionary academic leaders. We need vice chancellors, heads of institutions who can command this kind of leadership, be this kind of strategic visionaries who can actually shape these academic landscapes. If that happens, I think we'll be able to create the leaders that the society needs for changing itself. So this would be the way we need to craft, fashion, develop an academic institution to bring about the social change. We need to create that kind of leaders who can understand leadership from a very personalized sense. So to me, that leadership which emerges, which can bring about societal change, will be those people who understand humility, who understand that it's okay to be vulnerable in life. It's okay not to have all the answers, because only then you start co-discovering answers with others. That leadership, for me, the definition would be somebody who can understand themselves. And what is my role? What is my purpose? Why do I exist? What do I do with the education I got? Using that education as an instrument, at the same time as a sense of creating an obligation to society because I got that education. So looking at it from that perspective, not just as a transactional tool for making money or building my own self, but looking at how do I enable myself. So leadership for me would be understanding the self, understanding others around me, and that is society and all its problems of society. And the actions that I need to do that connects the self in me to the society or the other in the outside. It's about understanding the self, others around me, and the actions that bind the self to the other. Once we understand this, then this education system will throw up that powerful leaders who can transform society, transform themselves and transform society. So it will be a powerful spiritual action for us. So educational institutions will be actually creating leaders who are very mature in many ways. And that is what our educational landscape should think about. Because what does society need? I think society needs to solve its problems enormous capabilities in four major domains. First, we all need to understand the physical domain. Everybody in society wants to be healthy. Everybody in society wants to be physically well, the wellness that we talk about today. So we need to have a generation of people who can bring every person in the world today to be to grow their physical capabilities. Second, we need to create a world which can grow cognitive capabilities. The spread of science and technology needs cognitive growth. Let's not dispute it. How we apply cognitive growth needs a humanistic approach, a compassion that we need to create. But that's the humanities of NEP. But if you look at the realities, we need to grow in science and technology. That's the world we are living in and we are operating in today. We cannot dispute the kind of progress that we have and the science that's contributing to that progress. So we need cognitive growth. So we need to build cognitive capabilities. And more importantly, we need to create emotional connects. Today, the world is getting so disconnected emotionally. So, this leadership, which will craft social change, understands that you got to invest in building physical capabilities. You got to invest in building the cognitive capabilities. You got to invest in building emotional capabilities. We need a generation of people who understand intrapersonal intelligence as much as interpersonal intelligence. And finally, today, the spirituality I described, you need leaders who can enable and grow spiritual capabilities because we need peace, we need equity, we need fairness, we need justice, and all this matter for social change. We need that kind of leaders who understand it, who understand empathy and compassion as much as they understand competition and collaboration. We need people who can distinguish all this. And that is the kind of leadership that today's education landscape will throw if we do whatever I spoke about in the last few minutes. And if we start doing this, we'll start handling all the three crises. We will understand that all men are actually equal. We'll start believing in it, living in it. Each of us will start looking for equity. I'm not saying gaps will never exist. Minimizing gaps is the best we can do. Eliminating gaps is a dream which can never achieve. But accepting that reality, but constantly struggling to minimize it, is a journey of social change for us. So I think if we can all start moving towards that, imagine the world. Imagine a world where war is no longer described as something happening today, but something in the past. Imagine a world where hunger is just a experience we read in our history books and it's never going to happen today. Imagine where we'll have peace, we'll have plenty, we'll have prosperity, we'll have a space where everybody will be treated as a fellow equal. We'll have people who will work together as partners in progress, not as competing nations to show one is better than the other. And I think the time has come for India to be all this. If we can really craft this NEP and if the academic leaders of India take it on as a mission, and if every institution, and I'm sure institutions like JSS, which are already known for this kind of attempts and innovations, if it can take this on and further expand its work, further look at more such opportunities across the country, across the world, to take this philosophy of service that they're very famous for, and if we can build on institutions like that, imagine the new generation of young people we'll create. We can create those people who will create more such institutions, whether it is in the space of civil society, whether it is in public administration, public spaces, or it is in the private sector. If you can create this compassionate, soulful people, then the economic model that will come out of that thinking will be a far benefit economy, which will benefit the world, which will benefit individuals, which will benefit society, which will benefit all of us, all the stakeholders that together can make this world a better place. So to me, education must result in all that. So the academic institutions have the primary responsibility to refashion themselves not as just degree granting institutions. Degrees are symbols of the the work that they do. They're just symbols. But real work and purpose of academic institutions is to fashion this new generation of people who will have enormous faith in themselves, who will come out with expertise, skills, and the mindset to serve, not just with degrees and qualifications, who will actually understand that societal investment is actually more priceless than individual growth. And if we can do that, the world will truly be a great place. And that is the leadership we need to fashion. So once again, thank you all so much for giving such a patient hearing. I know it can be very painful on a Saturday afternoon to listen to a monologue of at least 45 minutes or 1 hour I spoke, and then patiently try to listen to it. So now I would like to stop here, and I'm sure some of you may have questions and clarifications to seek. I don't even expect all of you will agree with what I said, and you can definitively counter-argue or have anything provocative to offer or agree with me also. But the bottom line is this. Together, we have to make this world a better place. And let's start with India, because India owes a responsibility to the world. Vivekananda said India should be the Jagannatha, the Jagat Guru. And this is what we need to teach the world. And together, we can actually do that. Like Swamiji said, he said, I need to see an India, a new India, Mother India sitting on a throne, resplendent in all her glory, and giving out the message to the rest of the world. And if this is the message that we can give, the world will truly look up to us. That journey has begun. It is now up to this next generation to strengthen it, take it forward, and build on it. So thank you so much once again for giving me a patient hearing. I thank Dr. Hunegowd and all the senior people at the JSS University for having invited me for the launch of the series, and I'm glad that I participated. And now I would welcome any questions that you might have. Thank you so much. Namaste.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much for your valuable insights and for explaining about the future of leadership development, for bringing a social change in the educational landscape. I would thank you once again, sir. It was really enlightening for all of us. So, sir, we have a few questions asked. The question is, what are the challenges a leader as an individual face?
I think I wouldn't call it challenges, or it is more about a person and his own ability to believe in himself, the conviction that we have in what we believe. It is the first challenge I would say is, or the first barrier to cross for a person. I don't even believe in the word leader. So in the process of exercising leadership, the first barrier is setting a purpose for ourselves. And if your purpose is selfish, that is not exercise of leadership. So many times we set purposes for us. I must earn ₹1 million in 1 year, or I must set up a new factory. But if you can convert it into a selfless purpose, I must set up a new factory to provide employment to 1,000 other people. You're still setting up the factory, you will still possibly make money, but in that pursuit, you're actually looking at a higher purpose. And so to me, that's the first challenge, converting a selfish desire into a noble, selfless purpose. The second is having the patience to continue to, three qualities becomes necessary, which like Vivekananda says, purity, patience, and perseverance. To attain a purpose, sometimes we take shortcuts. That's a dangerous thing. So the next thing is we'll have a lot of temptations to take shortcuts, but you must be pure enough not to take them. Second, results don't happen overnight. We feel frustrated, we'll have a lot of opposition, but you must be patient. So losing patience is a challenge which you have to overcome. And the last I feel is we give up very easily. Today, the generation of Siddharth and others is a control alt delete generation. You do something you don't like, it reboot. It doesn't work that way. You need to persevere long enough till you taste success. So that is giving up easily without persevering is the next challenge. So I believe setting a purpose, converting the purpose to make it selfless, being pure enough not to take shortcuts, having the patience to understand that I have to, how to negotiate the frustrations that accompany any major selfless purpose, and finally not giving up and persevering till you achieve and taste success. If you can manage this, then you're overcoming all the challenges.
So, thank you, sir. And we have one more question. Developing leaders is really important, but the present world scenario where people are more active or involved in dragging others down, how can this be disrupted?
Come again, I lost you in the middle, Siddharth.
Yes, sir. Sir, developing leaders is really important, but the present world scenario where people are more active or involved in dragging others down is prevalent. So, how can this be disrupted?
Very simple. You be the change you want to see. Why do you talk about others and say others are dragging people down? You make a commitment to yourself. I will keep pushing people up. I will elevate myself and elevate everybody around me is the only thing you can do. We all have this enormous desire to change the world. And we think the world does not change, it is reason enough for me to go back to where I was. Why do you want to change the world? Start with yourself. You are the world. Begin the change with yourself. And your small circle of influence will change around you. And every human being desires to be the change, like Gandhi said, that you want to see. That is the way the world will change. So let's throw away this excuse of wanting to say others are pulling everybody else down. Am I pulling somebody down? I'll stop it. I'll elevate myself and elevate everybody else around me. Let us begin small, and that's all we need to do.
Thank you, sir. So, do you have any inspiring words for the youth who are, very willing to bring a change in the world?
Very simple for me, Siddharth. Just believe in yourselves. Swami Vivekananda said, faith, 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 faith in oneself. And today, we are all belonging to a generation where young people are told, I think discard such advice. Think positively, act constructively, believe in yourselves. And there is no way you will taste failure. All you need is conviction and faith that you've got enormous power within you. Power which can elevate you, power which can spiritually ennoble you, and power which can change this world to make it better. Believe and you'll achieve.
Thank you so much, sir. And now I would like to call upon our convener, Dr. Rupa S., to give the vote of thanks and also welcome Mr. Chetan. Ma'am.
Good evening, Siddharth. Am I audible?
Yes.
Siddharth, am I audible?
Yes, ma'am.
I think I see a hand raised, Dr. Rupa. I think Dr. Bharati is asked a question.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Yeah. Dr. Bharati, maybe she needs to be unmuted.
Sir, namaste, sir.
Namaste. Chennagidira.
Oh, sir, ಚೆನ್ನಾಗಿದ್ದೀನಿ ತಾವು ಚೆನ್ನಾಗಿದ್ದೀರಾ sir? Sir, my question is like you are talking about minimizing the gaps.
Sorry, Bharati.
You were talking about minimizing the gaps.
Can somebody repeat it for me? I'm not able to hear it properly.
No. My question is like you spoke about minimizing the gaps. Hello? Am I audible? Hello? Hello?
Madam, there's a background noise actually from your end.
Okay. My question was, sir was talking about minimizing the gap.
Can you put it, if there's a chat box, can you put it there? I'm not able to hear you properly, Doctor. Or if Dr. Rupa, minimizing that. Yeah, I spoke about it in the context of socioeconomic, the inequities that prevail. Can you hear me?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Yeah, I spoke about it from the inequities that prevail and life being a constant attempt to minimizing it. We can never eliminate it because that's the gap between rich and the poor. When you move it, I'm not sure. Can you?
Rupa madam, I think you have to mute when sir is speaking. Yes, I think that's better.
Yeah, so I think minimizing gaps essentially is about in every space. As technology progresses, knowledge progresses, we minimize gap in the cyberspace, but we need to minimize it in the heart. We need to eliminate those gaps in our thinking. We need to eliminate it in social spaces, political spaces, economic spaces. That is what I meant, and we can do it. Like, for example, if you bring in a stakeholder economy or what we call a soulful economy, where every person gets a benefit based on the value he brings to the economic food chain. And that is minimizing that gap. Similarly, societally, socially, we live in a world where it's very easy to see each other as an equal. Why do we constantly differentiate? Our minds are trained to differentiate. I still remember in 20, 25 years ago, I would wear a simple dhoti and a shirt, and it was very difficult for people to accept me as a doctor because in their minds, a doctor should be well dressed, wearing a pant, shirt, and looking smart. But that's it's in the mind, right? Finally, my being a good doctor is all what my intelligence is all about. It's nothing to say whether I'm wearing a dhoti or a pant. But that is what I'm just giving an example. So it's all eliminating such gaps in our thinking, eliminating gaps in the way we respond to people, whether it is a poor person or a rich person, whether it's a woman or a man, whether whichever gender he belongs to, accepting people as they are. What does it matter if they're a transgender and which are not? What does it matter what the sexual orientations and preferences are? What does it matter what the food habits are? What does it matter what the religious beliefs are? If we can just accept people as they are, that is an attempt to minimizing gaps. That is what I meant.
Thank you, sir. Thank you very much.
I think now Dr. Rupa can possibly wrap it up.
Yes, sir. Am I audible?
ಕೇಳ್ತಾ ಇದೆ.
ಕೇಳಿಸ್ತಾ ಇದೆ. Okay. Good afternoon, all. As a convener of IAC JSS STU, I would like to take this opportunity to thank the eminent speaker of today's Impact Lecture Series, Dr. S. Balasubramaniam, who is also known as Balu Sir. I feel that he's the right resource person to start this Impact session series. We are very glad to have you here, sir. Sir, in the beginning you mentioned certain facts, and it was very shocking to know that we are living in such a contradictory life. It would be the carbon footprint that we are leaving by usage of unwanted excess facilities, or we talk about sustainability, but already we are eating up the future food, which is 8 months in advance, etc. You never said that any development is wrong or bad, but you clearly pointed about appropriate utilization of resources as per the actual needs and not based on the greedy. Also to find out alternatives that could bring the balance in what we say and what we do through the new policies, especially in education domain. Sir, regarding the solution to this situation, it was very clearly mentioned by you. We learned from you that there is need for disruption. This causes radical change in existing condition by the combination of self-experiencing, innovation, collaboration, and provide leadership for these things. Sir, on behalf of the participants, I wish to say that we teachers, in collaboration with young, energetic students, will work together towards such models for societal transformation. Today, we were all spellbound when your session. Sir, we are very glad, as I said. We do greatly appreciate that impact. Even more impact that is expected is when we also can get involved in such mass movements and impact the lives around us. With this hope and invitation, I thank Balu sir heartfully for his acceptance and inspirational time. Thank you, sir. Thank you very much.
Thank you. And with all your permission, I would like to leave this meeting. So thank you so much, Dr. Negowda.
Thank you so much, sir.
Sir, shall I continue with the
Please.
next speaker?
Please.
We have second expert today. Good evening, all. It is a pleasure to introduce our next speaker, Mr. Chetan DIxit. Chetan DIxit has done his undergraduation in Bachelor of Engineering in Electronics and Communication from Nitya Meenakshi Institute of Technology. He has done his post-graduation in Master of Public Policy from the prestigious National Law School of India University. Uh, Professionally, Chetan DIxit currently is Program Manager, Startups and Innovation, Karnataka Digital Economy Commission, KEDEM, Government of Karnataka. KEDEM is a Section 8 organization designed to be the knowledge bridge between the Government of Karnataka and industry. Chetan DIxit has worked as an assistant manager, government advisory at KPMG. He was earlier worked as a program officer, Public Affairs Center. He was nominated as coordinator of Karnataka State Innovation Council, Government of Karnataka during the year 2012, where he has announced, anchored, coordinated various initiatives initiated by Karnataka Knowledge Commission, Karnataka State Innovation Council, Government of Karnataka under the chairmanship of Dr. Kasturirangan. He is also an executive board member at Takshashila Institute of India Studies. His key achievements are as he was the core leader and team lead of StudSat, which is also known as Student Satellite, which is India's first student satellite, which was launched during the year 2010 by ISRO. He has played the crucial role of head project and finance management team for StudSat, which was initiated, conceptualized, and project managed by undergraduate students across India, a joint venture program between ISRO and NMIT. With this brief introduction, I welcome Mr. Chetan DIxit to deliver the talk on opportunities and challenges for startups in India. Over to you, sir.
Thank you so much, madam, for the warm introduction. And first of all, I would like to thank Dr. Honnegoda sir and the entire JSS Institution Academy for inviting me for this session. I'm really happy and glad to be participate. And also, it's been, it's a tremendous challenge, to take a session after, when Dr. Balu sir, speaks. So I take this as a challenge so that I do justice to the topic which has been given to me. I'm thankful that the topic is very different. So I have a entire new subject and the focus where I can present with the experience of our past. So today I have been asked to discuss mainly about the startup ecosystem, especially in terms of the opportunities and challenges for startups in India and or in general in Karnataka as well. So the kind of, the overall, the next few minutes or maybe like 30-40 minutes, how I would like to keep the entire session is like, I have prepared few slides because of the benefit of the students and all the faculty here, so that, and I would like to have it like more of an interactive, more than a monologue. So any doubt or any, clarity or any more, please do stop, or you can put it in the chat box. Maybe I'll be happy to take the questions, or if we can also wait. If you can wait until the end, I'm happy to address the questions towards the end of the session. So let me just present my screen. Is my screen visible?
No, Mr. Chetan.
Okay. So now?
Yes, sir. It's visible.
Yes, sir. It is visible.
All right. Thank you. So, let me just start with the basics of, the startup and, the kind of ecosystem, what India is and where are we, and how are we progressing, or, because this is a decade of startups, or this is I think the last 5 years or 10 years is been the, I mean, era of startups, and we can proudly say, I'm sure all of you here follow a lot of technology startups and other things. So I think this is a great time where we are here. If anyone of you are looking to be the future entrepreneurs or the startup owners, or anyone might already been here as a student entrepreneur or an entrepreneur, I mean, this is the right space, or this is the right time, I can say. So, I mean, moving on, just let me throw an overall idea about what is an entrepreneurship or what is a startup. I mean, this is a very basics of fundamental, but I would like to just, reiterate so that, we don't miss out on the storyline for anyone who have any misconceptions or any other thing. So entrepreneurship is a phenomenon or a conceptual or a word, wherein a startup is more of a action, or, so it is the company which has the initial stage of business, that's where, it's in simple, we call it as a startup. Again, so when I talk about the startup here today, it is all related to the technology-based startups. So do not correlate to the startup which is in the non-tech space. So I would like to, because I understand this is a technological university, and also today we are in the innovation space of the session. So that is where I would like to keep the entire session in terms of the tech-based startups. So that is the kind of disclaimer I would like to say. So I mean, we all know. But again, when we say startup as a definition, because Government of India and Government of Karnataka do recognize or has a defined terminology for startup. So what is a startup? As per the definition of government, this is a government. So when you say that if any company or any legal entity in the country or in the state which does not exceed more than 10 years, or a company type should be of a private limited, a registered partnership, or a OPC, or the limited liability partnership. So this is the type of categorization the startup definition mandates. And again, when we say in the definition of the Government of Karnataka notified startup, here, the 50% of the qualified workforce should be based out of Karnataka. So that is where the startup definition. And again, naturally, the startup definition, the turnover should not exceed more than 100 crores. So the moment you exceed more than 100 crores turnover, I'm not talking about the profit here, the annual turnover 100 crores, you're not a startup. So this is the few checks and balances which the government has recently came out with the kind of the definition. The reason being, to differentiate between, the startups, so that government can give a focused attention and encouragement to the startups, for the business owner. And also another area is, the startup should not be a subsidiary of a large conglomerate or an MNC or anyone who is a PSU. That is not considered as a startup. So that is another area. So just look at, the overall Indian ecosystem. So, where are we? So this is a very fascinating figure. This is the recent, the NASSCOM and the Zeno report, which says, in the last 10 years, when I mentioned, when I begin the, the session, I told this last decade or last few years is been the era of startups. So at least 25,000 to 26,000 tech-based startups have been formed in the last 10 years. This is fascinating. And also, if you look at the only last year, more than 2,000 plus startups have been founded. Tech startups. Here, when I say again startups, it is only the tech startups is what I'm focusing on. So this is the kind of the Indian ecosystem which is growing. And then unicorns. So how many of you know what is a unicorn? Or anyone can tell what is a unicorn?
The company which name is in the share Indian stock market.
Not preferably. Not mandatorily. That could be one of the company.
And it has more than 100 crore business in annual turnover.
Okay. You are getting close to that number, but I think, there is a proper definition on to it.
$1 billion.
Exactly.
Business.
Absolutely. So a unicorn is classified or recognized when a startup reaches a $1 billion valuation or the evaluation. Okay, so that is where we call as the any guesses how many unicorns we have here today in the country?
Overall or new as a new?
Overall, till now.
No idea, sir.
Any guesses?
More than 100.
That's right. So recently, we reached 100, and I think 101st unicorn has also been formed here. And I think, I mean, Karnataka again leads the unicorn, the share, I can say. More than 40% of the unicorns in the country is from Bangalore or Karnataka. So today we have 40 plus unicorns working out of Karnataka. And, just to give you a trivia or a stat, the first and the 100th unicorn and the fastest unicorn is from Bangalore. So this is the kind of, ecosystem which the Bangalore or Karnataka, I mean, today, has it. So that is on the, unicorns. And only in 2021, 42 unicorns were added in the country. So this is such fascinating. I mean, can you guys, understand the scale of the business or scale of the startup which is growing? So this is the kind of, and just, the unicorns is one thing, but how many this also is also related to the kind of the ecosystem which is there in the country or in the state today. So, when you say that ecosystem here, I mean to say on the investors or, the accelerators, the incubators and all the others. I'll come to those things and, the opportunities and, the kind of challenges with the startup phase. So this is fine. I'm just trying to give you the snapshot or a scale of the startup ecosystem where we are here today in the country. Okay, so only in last year 2021 there was 750 plus institutional active institutional investors are created or present. So that is the kind of traction which the Indian startup ecosystem or the Indian innovation ecosystem is actually capturing. So this I thought I'll just give you a small snippet of the thing. So where are we in terms of the global perspective? Okay, when we say global, you can see the center one where the India alone, like we had 70 unicorns. Again, we have the 30. This is again outdated 2021 data, wherein when we say the 2022, we are again we have crossed 100 plus. But here the interesting thing which I wanted to get into, the audience or the students here is the average time of creation of a unicorn. If you see, we are the least time between 5 years to 7 years. There are unicorns are formed. The average time. There are examples of classic examples wherein less than 5 years. Also, we have seen unicorns booming out of the country. But this is the average time. So when we compare this with the institutional or the conventional industries versus the startups. So today you can see the advancement of the pace of the market capturing, also as a business, also as a technology, everything is faster. So that is the kind of where we stand. Again, after USA or China, I think India is the lead. Again, Israel is known as the startup nation in the world, which again very known for the innovation, but we are catching up. So this is the kind of a larger Indian ecosystem. I'll just go on to the next slide. Right. So when I say startups, so I'm sure everyone, most of you who understand startup will be thinking, what is a startup? What is the area should I think, or what is the emerging startup clusters? If I ask you, what are the emerging sectors in the startups, I think we might able to handfully, but this is the landscape of the current emerging sectors of the startups. So you name any of the startup, or any of the sector, today we have startups. When I mention startup, it's a newborn, profitable or innovative companies which are into the solution providing and who are already in the business making their mark. So that is where. So earlier when we were seeing that any transport or any other mobility or whatever, we used to have a very conventional, the large scale industry. But today we have startups entering into the manufacturing segment, startups entering into the agri segment, startup and fintech. Fintech. Can you guys give me an example of any fintech startups? Or any startups which will probably categorize here today. I'm sure if you open your mobile apps, I'm sure you will have a lot of apps offered by the startups you will be using by knowingly or unknowingly, they all are the startups. Any more names or ideas or can you give us?
Spotify for a fintech startup.
Okay, Spotify is more of an entertain tech. Okay, that is also a fintech, we can say.
Car trade?
Sorry?
Car trade?
Car
Spinny.
trade. Okay, car
Spinny.
trade. No, if I specifically as on fintech. I mean, what is a fintech?
Okay.
Can we just understand what is a fintech? I mean, this is the kind of new things which I wanted to just throw upon to all the audience or the students here, so that you can start thinking on these angles, or because we would like to see more and more startups, because we also understand there is an innovation or incubation center is also coming out at the JSS institution, the university. I mean, it's so heartening to know that. So BFSI, any idea on the BFSI? What is BFSI?
Bombay Stock Exchange.
And not really, but a similar sector, I can say.
Bombay FinTech Service.
No. Okay, let me just tell you. BFSI is the banking financial services industry. So which caters on both banking and the fin. Okay, how many of you guys use have, while recharging your phones or recharging or buying anything, you would have seen a Razor Pay, right? Razor Pay integration, Razor Pay.
Yes.
Razor Pay is a classic example of fintech.
Gateway.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So any financials or commercialization using a platform of technology, we can categorize them as fintech. So, I mean, that's a classic example, because and at the back end, there are so many startups which are actually serving lot of today the banking players. Because I personally know, a lot of fintechs who cater services to the banks like the Karnataka Bank or, the SBI. And these are the startups. I mean, the startups are the vendors or the customers for these bankers. But they may not be a brand in the front end, but they are playing a very important role at the back end. So that is what the power of startups or a fintech, which I was saying. There is a fintech classic example called What's Loan. Okay, there's a What's Loan. There again, a What's Loan is another fintech. Where you can access the credit and agree credit or anything instantly. So they enable all these backend technologies connected to the UPI or the Aadhaar or all these integrated thing as per the guidelines, as per the mandate, and then they provide the financial services. So that is one example. Similarly, this is this is again a few list which I thought I will just show it in the screen, so that for the I'm sure many would not probably have heard of these things, or you might have already known. That's also absolutely fine. But this is the emerging sectors of startup. So if you take each of the sector, you can find plenty of startups already entering the space or already disrupting this market. That is I think that is something which I thought I should I thought I will show it to the all the audience of the students over here. So this is about the startups emerging sector. But okay, now coming to the stages of startups. So when we say stages of startups, I'm not talking about the life cycle of a startup. So what are the different stages of startups can we we do see or we do hear? Any guesses on those things, team here? Okay, so let me sorry.
Innovative idea.
Okay, that is a life cycle, which I'll come to the life cycle of a startup. But when I say stages of startups, so there are 3 stages we can consider. One is the early or the seed or the pre-seed startups, okay, who are in the ideation stage, exactly like what you are suggesting. That is one of the thing. And then the mid-size, okay. So if you see, what is an early stage startup? So early stage is again, the small team or a core group of founders or just, people who have started working on an idea or on a product or something. Again, the typical, startup size, here comes between somewhere around 10 or 10 to 20. That is the kind of an early stage. So again, here, I'll not get into what is the qualification, other things, because there's no boundary for these things, or there is no minimum, requirements for any startup to be happening. If you have a passion, if you have the right idea, if you have the right business entry, that's it. You can be a startup and you can definitely strive through it and, prosper as a successful startup. So this is early stage. What is the growth stage startup? Okay, now I have an idea. I have already incorporated. I already have a team. Now my product is successful. But now it is for me to take this successful model to the next level. For example, if I'm having a business of at least 50 lakhs or 1 crore or 10 lakhs, or it could be anything. It depends on my my startup or my product. It could be a solution. It could be a physical product and anything. How do I take this revenue from 50 lakhs to 1 crore or 1 crore to 10 crores? This is the typical, where the growth stage of a startup comes in. So that again, usually what happens is the ideation of the core team will be very small initially. Then the growth stage startups come into the place where, it will be somewhere in the average of 30 to 40 or more than 50. Again, it depends on startup to startup. But here, I just wanted to give you an overview of what a growth stage startup is, different stages. So this is like a story, like one idea I have. So from my early stage, now I'm in a growth stage. Then after my growth stage, what is the next stage? Is the established, or we are already in the market leaders. We are in the market. So when I said, okay, I took an example of the Razorpay. Today, Razorpay is a very established startup or established person. Now they're a unicorn. Now they're a unicorn. How many of you know the story of the Razorpay? How many of you know the story of Zerodha? Again, the classic fintech example. Right? Have you guys traded in using the platform of Zerodha? I'm sure a lot of students would be now exploring, giving their hands on the stock market or trading or something, because we see a lot of students also getting into that. So Zerodha, I'm sure, again, is another very common or a very popular platform used for all the trading. Right? Any guesses on Zerodha? Okay, who founded Zerodha? Who founded Razorpay? Any guesses, guys? Okay. So Zerodha, if I want to say, it was started by the Kamath brothers, Nitin Kamath and Nikhil Kamath. Okay, and the Razorpay was from Harshil and Shashank. Today they are the unicorn, they are the leaders. In fact, now I'll come back to those again, further points of startups. Now the startups are funding further startups, or startups are also acquiring other startups. So that is the beauty of innovation. That is the beauty of the pace which these startups are getting into it. Unlike the conventional industries of the business owners or any other business industries, today startups are so dynamic. You would be reading a lot of news saying that the big business acquired, or the other company for so and so dollars or so and so millions or whatever it could be. That is the startup. So right now, what happened? There are two trends happening. The startup, one, you establish, and also there are startups. They know when they want to exit. Also, that means exit in the sense, when they want to hand over this entire business to someone else, that means, they want to sell their startup and then they want to move on. So there are two types. Earlier, there is a conventional, the thought process of any businesses was, like I open a company or an industry today, it should go for generations together. The further generation are either, it should be handed over to the people and then take over. But today the startups are so aggressive that next five years, they know 5 years I need to run a business. I need to operationalize the profit. I need to make more profit or acquire or whatever, and then I should exit and I should start another startup. So that is the kind of pace the startup is happening today. So that's what I was telling you. So the Zerodha has a separate entity called Rainmatter. So Rainmatter invests into a lot of other startups. Okay, similarly, Razorpay also has a strategy to invest in a lot of other strategies. So that means the reason why I'm giving you these kind of examples are to understand how startup is not only about struggling or making ideation. Yes, the struggling or the initial ideation or initial market capture, initial market acquisition, it is challenging, it is tough. I'm definitely not saying all startups will succeed or flourish, but I'll come to to other, the highlights or something. I would like to just ask one open question, Is idea important, or is or implementation important in any startup?
Implementation.
Okay.
Idea is 1% and implementation is 99%. Actually, when we talk about innovation.
Right. Okay, agreed. Again, see, these are all very subjective or very debatable thing. Again, it depends on the idea and depends on the implementation.
Yes.
Right. But when we say, which is the, okay, I mean, if I takadi hakbeku andre, I mean, which is the one, which will have more, weight, or which is the have a lesser weight, or is it in the equilibrium? So there are examples like a very, common idea. Okay, today a successful business. Similarly, there is extraordinary innovation, which is also failing. Extraordinary implementation is happening, but they're still not progressing. How? I mean, how does it work? So is again, I'll once again ask: is it idea important or validation important, or is both important? Both definitely it's important.
Both equally important.
Both are equally important, but not all ideas are wow. For example, let's take an example. Like today you see all this net meds or the medicine delivery. What is an idea? It is a simple idea of delivery of the medicine from the pharmacist to the consumer. Right?
Promotion is very important here.
Right. Marketing. I mean, the marketing of branding
marketing,
is one
yeah.
example. Yes, one of the, that is one of the criteria. Agreed. One of the criteria to be a successful thing. But I'm saying idea is simple. But again, here, I think, the one of the gentlemen said, it's the execution of the thing. So I have an interesting, thought process here. That's the reason I wanted to ask you this. Do you guys agree to this slide? Can you see the slide? Can you see the slide?
Yes.
Right. So this is the value of an idea. I mean, when we say idea and execution, again, it's a mathematical thing. So this is kind of an index or a table where you can see a weak idea with a very good execution, you can still able to make money. I'm here when I say money, it's a business. Right? Again, similarly, it's a brilliant idea without any or a weak execution. Still, I make money, but the quantum differs here. Is it right? Am I making sense?
Yes.
So this is a very interesting. I thought I should be able to. So for any innovative ideas or any students or any entrepreneurs are thinking, please do have these things in mind. Again, don't look at, at the same time, I don't want to say that only look at the brilliant idea. You need to only have a patentable idea to be a startup or to be a business. No, that is not also the reason what I wanted to communicate through this slide. The idea is, okay, if you have any decent idea or a good idea, here in this is so-so idea, but if you can execute the same so-so idea in a brilliantly, the quantum of business you can get here. Right. So what I wanted to say is the startup, definitely if you have a brilliant idea or a novel idea or a patentable idea or, something which you're disrupting the entire market, nothing like that. But that is not the only criteria you can think around it. So this is something, keep in mind if any of the prospectors or, startups or entrepreneurs are, looking ahead. So again, okay. Is there any question? Okay, I'll continue. So I said, a life cycle of a startup. The reason why I'm trying to come out with here is, then I'll be coming to the key points of opportunities and challenges. So opportunities and challenges of, the topic which I was being asked is related to each of the stages or each of the cycle or each of the element what we are discussing now. So there are lot of incentives or lot of other ecosystem element or also come to those things what government of India or what government of Karnataka specifically offer for startups, to encourage. So I'll come to that. So when I say life cycle of a startup, again, this is the very broader macro level, as I can say. One is you have an idea, you have funding. Funding could be your bootstrap or from an external thing. Then you come out with a product development and then you come out with assets. So that's it. This is the phase one. Then what is the next further thing is the market, opportunity. You can go to identify the market. Then again, do a prototype of a solution. You test, reiterate, and again, you go for a scale of funding because you need to grow. Again, we saw that early stage or growth stage and the established. So this is the, broad startup life cycle. Again, these things are again depending on the kind of product or kind of idea or the business idea what each one will have. But this will be kind of a larger startup life cycle perspective. Now, simple. If there is some mantra or some tips, if you want to understand, how to make or how to come out with the startups, these are the 8 points or 7 points. First thing you need to do is you need to do a market study, and then never ever go on an assumption. It could be your idea. Something would have flashed to you. Okay, ಹಿಂಗ್ ಮಾಡಿದ್ರೆ ಹಿಂಗ್ ವರ್ಕ್ ಆಗ್ಬಿಡತ್ತೆ, ಗ್ಯಾರಂಟಿ ದಿಸ್ ಇಸ್ ಅ ಸಕ್ಸಸ್ಫುಲ್ ಬಿಸ್ನೆಸ್ ಮಾಡೆಲ್. You would have thinking, you would be very sure, or your ego would be very very strong that you will not be any, that will not be backed by any facts or any basis. So to get into a startup, don't just go by an assumption that if you think any idea is a $1 billion idea. Any idea is $1 billion idea, but what is the hurdles or what are the executional challenges or implementation, the market forces, you need to think about it. So when I say that, okay, two friends talking, hey dude, let's do this is a brilliant idea. Okay, brilliant idea is fine, but again, don't get into an assumption. Always go by fact-based decisions to come out with any startups. Okay, and the next point is again, okay, I have an idea now. Okay, my facts are also clear. Let's do one thing. After this, let's do it after 6 months, or let's do it after a year, or maybe like, okay, let's complete our engineering, or let's complete after my master's. Let us start this. Until then, let me complete. But by then, someone else would have already implemented and would have already captured the entire market. So that is something, don't wait. Immediately act fast. So that is one thing. And when I say break some rules, I'm not talking about the rules of any legal or any compliance or the statutory rules. Here I'm talking the rules of the game or rules of the business. Be innovative in business, so that's where you can have a very successful startup. So that is another element. And then the next element is, again, you need to be very critical of your own environment. You then just don't go by assumption that this is my thing, this is already working and this will work in future. You need to be keep your entire business model or entire operations in the toes. You need to keep thinking, okay, is this stage the right stage? Should I reinvent? Should I rethink on certain things? Should I revisit my execution strategy? Relook my team strategy? These are the kind of thing. And again, speed is the key. For any startup, speed is the key. Otherwise, there are other 100 startups which will emerge. Once you start, there are 100 other startups who will come with the speed and capture the market. It might be your idea, but tomorrow, after 6 months, you already see there is already a person who are in the market in 1 month. You would have taken 6 months. Next 1 month or 2 months, he will be already serving the same product or coming out with the product. So that is one thing. And of course, last thing is have fun. If you don't have fun, you cannot run a startup. So, these are some few tips, where, as a startup, you can do. Again, opportunities and challenges for each of the things are very different, very challenging. So that is where I wanted to, come into the thing. So the next, any doubts or any till now? Is it fine? Shall we continue? If you have any doubts, yeah, please you can drop it in the chat. Maybe we can we'll be happy. I'll be happy to take, or you can stop me, or you can raise, and then I can stop so that I don't miss out on the the topic or any doubt before I go to the next further sections of the presentation. All right. So let me go to the next thing. Again, when it comes to challenges and the issues, there could be many things. What we saw was more on, like how things work. And this is something which I wanted to share, that where all you can trip as well. So one of the things is, obviously, it's a very understood, it's on the financial resources. You might have started, but you don't have enough financial resources or a backing to sustain your development or sustainable your growth. It would be a challenge for you. Again, you need to have your own thoughts on how do you need to revisit or rethink on these things. And again, revenue generation. You might have a great idea, great product, People would have complimented, yes, this is very good product. But at the end of the day, if people don't buy it, how do you going to generate the revenue? And again, how do you going to sustain yourself? So this could be another challenge. So when you're structuring your entire business or business model, you need to, please be aware of all these things. And third, definitely the team. Team matters a lot. I'm sure in your own experiences working with projects or hands-on projects or any other, or as simple as conducting a college fest, the importance of team members. If the team is good, the show is successful. If the team is again, there is no, the right team gelling together, it'll be very, very difficult for you to navigate in your startup journey. So team is a very important thing. So the next is the supporting infrastructure. Yes, you might have an idea, you might have team, you might have revenue, everything. But if there is no infrastructure, for example, let's assume you're coming out with a manufacturing product or a product which is you want to manufacture or a testing environment. If there is no infrastructure supporting to test, again, if you need to depend somewhere in the outside India or within India, again, it would be a challenge. So you need to be very, in terms of when you're starting off the things. And the fifth point, definitely awareness in the market is very, very important. You could be the first, you could be the first, player, you can have a first mover advantage in the business because of maybe of your innovative idea or innovative product. But again, if you fail to create that awareness in the market, will be a challenge for a startup. So these are the few challenges, we can discuss a little more in detail. If anyone has any specific question or specific experience, happy to share. Let's others also can, get benefit of these things.
Sir, can you throw some light on fundraising, sir?
Sure, sir. On the funding part, I'll come to the next
Okay, thank you.
steps because I have a separate, policy incentives where you can avail, and there are what type of different funding opportunities.
Okay, sir, no issues.
Okay. So, and then, the tenacity of the founders, again, the founders' motivation or, the perseverance are very, very important. And again, the regulation, cumbersome regulations. Again, if there is a regulatory aspects for your startup, how are you going to clear it? How are you going to run it is another challenge, right? For example, can you guys tell me an example of this cumbersome regulation faced by a startup? Or any legal hurdle faced by a startup? I'm sure you would have heard. If I tell you that, you will say yes. But just think, I'm sure you would have read things in the paper or newspaper, or you could also be one of the, a user of this.
Government policies, something.
Absolutely, sir. That is right. But can you correlate the government policy which is stopping or which is not clear for a startup? I need the name of the startup or a business model.
Inventory and this one model.
No, I'm looking for a name of the company who faced regulations. Their product was good or whatever. The business model is good, service is good, team is good, everything else is good.
Rapido, I think.
Absolutely. That's the example, sir. That's the example. Because Rapido was a disruptive in nature. They came here to disrupt the entire mobility or the urban, the landscape.
Yeah, why, we in our JSSST also we modeled the same structure, but we couldn't get the clear from the RTO. That's why.
Oh, is it? Fantastic, sir.
Yeah.
Then I have a solution for this. I'll come back to this in my further slides.
Okay.
Because government has come out with a new regulatory thing, which I will address that in that. And I'll be happy to support that. If you need anything, we are here because we are implementing for the government. I'll be happy to connect. Okay. So that is one thing. So, and again, the growth decelerators or, the lack of mentorship. I mean, these are the few other things, so these are the broad issues or challenges. I'll go to the next slide so that, because of the paucity of time, maybe we can have one-on-one kind of a questions or answers in the thing. Now, when we say opportunities, we saw the challenges. Now, where are we on the opportunities? So when it comes to opportunities, again, this startup and the entire startup ecosystem, where I can say it is an evolving. 10 years back, we never heard of an accelerator, word called accelerator. Or, or 15 years back, we never heard of things called incubator for startups, I'm saying. Not on the laboratory incubators, but on the startup incubators. Here, whatever we are talking is on the subject of the startups. So today we all know what is an incubator, what is an accelerator, and what are the partner programs, and there are many more terminologies. But I thought these are the few very common, and we're already now, I mean, today when I talk in 2022, there are established players who offer all these things. When it comes to incubator, usually the incubator model is, like the fixed term where the startup are housed within an incubator for a period of X period. It could be for 6 months or 1 year or 2 years, or depending, on the product or the kind of R&D or the innovation, what they're doing. And the incubator provides all the kind of a support and, the kind of a seed funding to access to investors and other things. So this is the incubation. So incubator is more of a pre-seed or an early stage. We discussed we discussed on the early stage, right, in the initial. So that is where the incubators play a major role. Similarly, when it comes to the accelerator, as the name says, accelerator, it is here to launch. This is for the growth or for the established, typically for the growth stage startups who already have a proven model, who already have a business, who already are in a revenue stage. But that revenue, how do they take it to the next level? So that is where the accelerator comes in. So here the accelerators, again, there are professionals who runs the accelerator programs. It's again a very short course. It's, we can consider like a crash course, in the academic terms, like it happens between 3 months to 6 months or 8 months, wherein they run cohort base. Each cohort, they have a preset conditions or a target or a sectors they will onboard. They have the best of the best experts providing these accelerator facilities or the knowledge, including the VC connect or including the funding connect. So here the VCs come. Today we see a lot of VCs getting traction or showing interest in both incubators as well as accelerators. So if an incubator during the incubator stage, it is again, we'll see a lot of angel investors coming here. We all know what is an angel investor, right? Anyone can explain who is an angel investor? Whom do we consider he's an angel investor?
Who gives technical as well as the financial support.
Correct. So when we say investors, it is predominantly we talk about the finance. Naturally, angel investors are also technically sound and they would like to also give, but not compulsory. But see, for example, you're coming out with, you're coming out with a very innovative product. And I say, okay, as a Chetan, I'm going to give you 20-25 lakhs to you. Please continue. But I have no idea about your product or your technical requirement of your product development. But I believe in your business. I see the future of the business. That's where I'm interested to put in. So I'll be an angel investor in this case. But most of them, as you said, both, if I know the technology, if I can understand the technology as well, definitely my confidence of investing is also high. But it does not mean technical is a mandatory, but here the funding or the investment is a mandatory thing. Again, who is a VC? So whom do we call as a VC? And what is the range of funds which usually VC offers today? Any guesses or any answers, team? All right. So VC, we predominantly call them as venture capitalist. Venture capitalist could be kind of a consortium of investors wherein a dedicated team manages the corpus. So there is a pooled in money as a VC. Okay, for example, like a lot of people put money for that company or the VC fund, we call it as VC fund. That VC fund, there is a fund manager who decides this fund. For example, I have a corpus of 20 crores or 50 crores or 100 crores, whatever VC. Then I will decide my distribution of money or investing into the startups for X, Y, Z categories, and also at what stage the categories are. For example, they say if the corpus is of 100 crores, let's say they have a pool of 100 crores. They said my 30% of my investment will go for the fintech, because this is how, because they do research. There is an in-house research team. There is an in-house market business analyst who estimate, who sees what is the next, where are we moving. So there is a lot of rational decision making which happens, not just on a blind or not just on the people. If X person, for example, if this celebrity or one person investment, it doesn't mean that all investors will just go because he's a celebrity, he's invested money. let me also invest money. No, every VC will have their own return of investments model. They will have their fixed, they know I need a ROI for 25%. If it is working to that model, I'm going to invest. Let it give 10% or 20%. I might not, because my margin or my return of investment is 25%. That would be the mandate of that VC. So that is where they do it. So VCs usually go to the accelerator stage or the growth stage startups. That is where the funding for opportunities for funding for that happens there. And then there is a new emerging programs also called partner programs. So here companies also directly invest, and also like a client. For example, I have a different software solution which I go and give it to, for example, let's say example of any company, like Texas or Intel or someone. Intel says, okay, this is a great product which is helping my company. What I'll do is I'll also co-invest in this product, and you continue to be my vendor as well, or my client as well. So these kind of partner programs. And now I know the business. Now this I will take it to other like the likes of Intel or likes of Accenture or Infosys, for example. I mean, this is just I'm taking hypothetical examples. So now the partner program, so even this corporate entity who gave an opportunity to be the client or first, who understand the next business, and for them, that is not the scale which they will be thinking. For example, the big corporates, 10 crores or 50 crore, 1 crore business, they might not be able to get in and invest all their resources or team to do that 50 lakhs or 1 crore business. But for a startup, that's an important thing. So what they say is, okay, you do, and then you multiply for 10 people. So my kitty is grown, my return of investment is coming back. So this is the kind of partner programs that, the investment is also happening in the current trend. So these are the few open innovation programs. Similarly, there are a lot of startup collaboration programs are also happening. What I was also mentioning, like the platform evangelization, how the corporates also incubate. They also give platform for their testing. For example, Infosys gives startups, okay, you come and test it out in my company, whatever solution you have or whatever product you have. Okay, and then, okay, I'll also give you for development, scaling, all the infrastructure support or revenue support, or the connects or market connects, or even their clients, access to their clients. So these kind of things. That is one thing. And then license or vendor agreement. So this is another area where it's happening that I mean which I also mentioned in the previous partner program. This could be one of the mode of collaborations is what we are discussing now. So that is one. And then the joint go to market. As I said, now say, okay, Infosys, for example, Infosys has given a funding for a JSS driven startup. Okay, now they say, okay, together we will go and sell this in the, do a business in the market. So that is the joint go to market. And then there is also called co-innovate. This is a very interesting. Okay, now, for example, I am a startup who already done an innovation in a platform or an entity. But the large corporate understand the importance of this innovation in terms of business or in terms of IP or in terms of it could be anything else. So what they're going to do is they say, okay, this is an interesting product. Let me also give my R&D support to you. Let me also give my novel support, my patents. I'll open up patents to you guys. Let us co-invent or co-jointly work and grow together and come out with a new entity or a new product. So this is another collaborative. So there are n number of opportunities today. It is opening up. Again, as I said, this is what I'm saying is, again, it's very dynamic. Maybe after 2 years, you could see something. After 6 months, you could be a new model coming out in the market. So which is unheard or unseen in the last decade or, in the previous. So that is where I said, this is the era of startups. So this is the time for any startups to hands-on to explore. So this is on the opportunities point of view. So moving on, there are again in institutional investors, I did mention about venture capital and then private equity and then corporate investors. So these are the, private equity. Again, private equity is directly I go and, invest in a company. VCs are, it's a pooled money where, they invest in XYZ companies or sectors or, they have their own strategy to invest. Whereas private equity is like directly, okay, I'm a company or I'm an individual, I'll come directly and invest and I take 30% stake in your company. So they are corporate is a company, as a company, they invest. So that's a corporate investor. So these are the different things. So, and now when it comes to the funding rounds. So how, we always hear of, I'm sure many people would be, reading, all of you would be reading today, the Flipkart did the Flipkart is now more matured and they're away, but I'm just giving an example. They said they did Series E, Series D, Series X, Y, Z, whatever. The reason is that is the kind of fundraising milestones the company comes in. What they do is seed stage. It's very simple. As I mentioned, it's an ideation stage. It could be either a bootstrap. What is meant by bootstrap? Bootstrap means I myself are investing, or I'm investing my own money. So that's a bootstrap. That's the terminology for bootstrap. Angel funding. When I say angel, okay, I will take my relative or someone else who comes and puts in. Okay, he becomes an angel investor. So angel investor and seed, and then I come out with a prototype or a product or a business MVP is ready. The next stage is the early stage. We're in the Series A. So now I already in the growth stage. So this is usually for the growth stage. Startups who are in startups in the growth stage, they get Series A, B, and subsequent rounds. They say, okay, what? And there are, just to let you guys know, there are a lot of investments only for Series A and Series B. People say I'm only investing in Series B and above. I'm not interested in Series A or angel also. That is the kind of investors you could definitely will face, or you would have faced in your entrepreneurial journey if anyone has explored in terms of funding opportunities. The reason is they have their own strategies. Because, for example, let's say Series B funding. When I say Series B funding, the startup or a Series A, he will be in an exit because he would have invested 50 crore. For example, he would have given a 50 lakh or a 1 crore. Then Series B will be 3 crores or 5 crores. So when you get Series B, the person who had invested as a Series A, they will say, okay, give me my, I will be happy to exit with my conditions. So he would have given 1 crore and then maybe he would have taken 1.2 crores and he would exit. So the amount of margin or amount of, the business he got is the 20 crore. The 20 lakhs or 20 crores, whatever. I'm just a number. But Series B will come say, okay, I'm going to give 5 crores. I'm going to invest 5 crores, and I will take his stake and my stake and everything. This is the country control of my the company I will going to have. So these are the kind of different stages happens. So, but then you might think, why did the Series A invest it? Because he was an early investor. He took the risk of seeing the business growing. So he says, my Series A funding, my returns are high. My expectation of Series A will be high. Series B will be in a scale up or an established, wherein unka returns is guaranteed, but unka return of interest could be much lesser. So that is why they play or they invest in large quantity, so that they know if for 1 crore of investment, you made a company made a 2 crore, for example. Similarly, if I invest 5 crores, I'm going to make 10 crores. As an example. So that is the kind of the Series A, B, C, D, comes into the market play. I'm just giving you a kind of opportunities or, the kind of the startup ecosystem, how they perceive it on the funding opportunities. Similarly, late stages, Series C and beyond is further raised. It's again, a different market. This was a classic example for the Flipkarts. For the Singapore company came in, SoftBank, the Tiger Bank, the Sequoia, and all these, the big global funding agencies comes and invest. They make their share and they exit, or they further go for another round. Their stake or the valuation goes up and they sell. And I think someone mentioned about the IPO and other initially. Yes. So after one, they might go for an IPO. They might definitely go for an IPO, and IPO say they get the money and they exit after the rise of the money from the IPO. So these are the different startup funding rounds or the avenues which startups can look into it. So I'll just move. Now I'll come to the the benefits. Someone had a question of the funding, access to fundings and other things. So I'm actually touching upon both Government of India benefits, also Government of Karnataka benefits. Before I'll just come to the last section. So when I say Government of India, okay, so here Government of India, again, it is monitored or implemented by the DPIIT, Department of Trade, Promotions, Industrial Innovation, Investments. That is the new department, the new nomenclature, which the government has taken up. So these again, it's part of the Commerce and Commerce Department as a parent department. So under the DPIIT, there is a section called Startup India or a Startup Cell. So what policy benefits they also offer for all the recognized startups are, One, you get a lot of IPR relaxation in the public procurement. So if you have a product and if government is one of your customer, they have certain exemptions or relaxations for that. And again, self-certification. If you're a startup, you don't need to go and apply under pollution control board or the labor laws and other things compared to the conventional industries. So you have all those governmental relaxations or the policy relaxations, we can say. That is one thing. And then the fund of funds. There is a like a special focused funds for fund of funds for startups. Again, this is for faster exit for the startups. So so if any startup are already working, we can explore the fund of funds. That is one thing. And then there is another fund called Startup India Seed Fund Scheme. This is again a central government supported seed funding programs. So this is one thing. And there are a number of other programs and other call fors, or if you're a woman-led startup, there are different schemes, or beneficiary, you will get a lot of benefits from the department and from the government. So these are few things. Similarly, there are other exemptions which the board or the interministerial board can give. Is you can avail an income tax exemption for any 3 years in the 10 years. If you're eligible there are certain criteria for you to qualify that you need to avail these exemptions. You need to be innovative, you need to be a revenue stage, and you need to have the novelty. Those kind of, there are certain criteria. If you like fall under these criteria, and if you're clear this stage, then you get an income tax exemption. You can take any 3 years in the next 10 years. So that's a very interesting the policy enablement which the government of India offers. And also there is a capital gain exemptions for any residential property if you're going to transfer it. So these are a few things I just thought I'll just throw open. I'll not get into the details right now. These are the few things. Again, the ESOPs, the tax liability, you can waive off certain things for the ESOPs and other things. But most importantly, I wanted to let you all know is, please visit Startup India Hub or Startup India portal. There are n number. I mean, you don't need to be a startup to visit there or register. There are a lot of learning and development programs. There are courses. There are kits available for the entrepreneurs. There are guides and other things. So you can get used to all those things. And if you're going to start, or if you are eager to start something, maybe immediately after your graduation or immediately after whenever you think. But having the early knowledge is very, very important, and it's always handy, and it will help you to run against the time. That is something which I thought. And then there are a lot of government schemes, the repository, you can do it. And then startup state policies. Wherever you're you're opening your startup, there are different states which offers different types of incentives for that particular for the startups operating from that particular state. That is one thing. And then there are a lot of pro bono services, like you get a lot of cloud credits, a lot of application, the legal support or banking support, customized support for the startups. That is one thing. Knowledge bank, there are tools and templates. I'll not get into it detail, but I want you to just explore those things in case if you have still not explored that in the Startup India Hub. That is one thing. And then there are a lot of innovation programs or challenges or mentorship programs for pilot. Government will be keep calling the applications, so you can explore all these things. And that is a very, very important, guys. Don't underestimate the power of these kind of challenges. I mean, once you are, and then your product or your market access will be much, much faster than what you would have been assumed also. And definitely networking. There is an idea bank, there's a networking opportunity and everything. So please look into the Startup India kit in the DPIIT portal. That's very important. So this is a very broad overview of the government of India. So I will now come to the opportunities, or what government of Karnataka also offers in terms of supporting your innovation on the entrepreneurial journey, not just for startup, for also to boost your innovation. So this is the broad 4 pillar, the government of Karnataka, which has the startup policy, or which focuses on. One is on the funding. The second pillar is on the incubation. The third is on the new technology and domains, and then the global connect. So when I talk about the funding, I'm sure how many of you have heard about the program called Elevate? Anyone who has heard about the Elevate programs? Hello. Have anyone of you have heard about the Elevate program, which is a very flagship, one of the government of Karnataka was the first state which came out with this program. This is Elevate is a seed funding program. It's one of, I heard one of the question on the funding and other thing. So this is a program where you just have an idea. You just have an idea and you have a basic entity. It could be as simple as a registered partnership or OPC or, private limited, anything. You just need to apply your entire idea as a pitch, and there is a standardized set process. And once you clear, you get a grant. Take my words, guys. It's a grant of up to 50 lakhs, basis on your idea and basis of your innovation. So this is a great funding opportunity. Many of the students or there are so many, till now, almost 700 startups have been funded out of this from government of Karnataka in the last 4-5 years. And I think, if I want to say the tune of the money, it's, I think, more than 150 crores budget has been dispersed. And this is completely as a grant just to support your idea. It falls under the policy called idea to POC, idea to proof of concept. So you have an idea. In order to make a first product, you need funding. In order to come out with a prototype, you need some basis money. You don't need to go for a loan, or you don't need to go for a collateral loan. If your idea is good, if your innovation is good, if your product is good, if it has a social impact, there are some basic criteria or categories there. So if you're into that, you get a grant of up to 50 lakhs. So that is something very, very important. Please do explore that. Okay, that is one thing. And then there are other grant challenges and other things, which is a part of the thing. And then the incubation is again, government also provide a lot of incubation support, or encourages a lot of organizations like the likes of the NASCOM or IASC or anyone to come out and incubate, to set up the facility. So these startups can avail the incubation facilities under these things in a very, very subsidized rate, in order to make your prototype or a product or a project or whatever, and then you can graduate yourself to the accelerate or into the market. So those things we did discuss, or the story of the growth journey. And then the new technology domains. So government of Karnataka has actually come out with the 8 center of excellences in different sectors. If you're looking into the bio, there is a center of excellences for bio-related, biotech related. If you're looking for cyber security, there is a center of excellence. If you are a product, or if you're thinking on a technology or product base, there is a center of excellence. So you can reach out to all these center of excellences, and you can ideate, or you can do a prototype, and you can just launch, because there is already a mentorship. There are other already available there. So these are a few things which I thought. And there are global connects also. Government of Karnataka has a lot of, global connects with different partners for the startups, exchange, startup corridors, where you can access the market of that country to this. So that is one thing. And these are the few things. I'll not go in detail of these things. I'll be happy to take questions, or if you want anything, I can explain in detail on these angles. There is a program called NAME. It's a New Age Innovation Network. This is basically for a students. If any students has an entrepreneurship project or a plan which you think is viable as a business idea, you get up to a funding of 3 lakhs as a student projects. And that is under the NAME network, or the NAME facilities. And there are common instrumentation facilities spread across the Karnataka, in Mysore, Belagavi, Mangalore, Shimoga, and Bangalore. That is one thing. And then technology business incubators. This is very important. When I say technology business incubators, the likes of the NASCOM, like of the Agriculture University or IASC host these technology business incubators. So here the hardcore technology, which also has a manufacturing or a product or these kind of things, you can go and experiment and come out as a startup. So this is about the TBIs. And then I was talking about the NASCOMs and other things. So till now, NASCOM has supported more than 200 startups for the Karnataka. Again, these are all facilitated by the government of Karnataka, promoted in collaboration with NASCOM. Similarly, IMAI, which is more of into the mobile and apps technology innovation hub. And then the BBC is the bio, the biotech, or the bio segment. There is a support. So I'll not go center of excellences. I wanted to just give you this thing. So if you are looking on a aerospace and defense, agro innovation, animation, visual effects, gaming and comics. Abhay is the anchor institution. Cybersecurity, IISc runs the Center of Excellence for Cybersecurity. NASCOM runs for both Internet of Things and also data science and artificial intelligence. And IIITB Bangalore has hosted a Center of Excellences for Machine Learning and Robotics. Similarly, the ISA for all the semiconductor, the board manufacturing, the PCB manufacturing, fabless, a kind of an accelerator. So this is a government of Karnataka which has been aggressively promoting, and there are a lot of success stories out from these the Center of Excellences. So if you have any product or any innovative idea aligning to these areas, please do reach out to them. Or if you want, we will be happy to connect to these of Center of Excellences, that is the case. So this is one thing. And then I did mention about the idea to POC Elevate, which is a known thing, wherein you get a grant of up to 50 lakh. You don't need to be in a very product stage or business stage. Even if it's an idea or in a very early stage, you get a funding. That is the whole purpose of this grant amount. And then there are other very dedicated, very exclusive, policy incentives, like to promote the women or the SC/ST community. There are different calls happens under the Elevate. So please do watch out for the Government of Karnataka Startup Karnataka portal. And you can put your email IDs or registration, so you keep getting all these alerts and all these as and when the call for applications happens and these things happen. Just to give you a few Bounce. I'm sure everyone have heard of Bounce, right? Or used the Bounce services as the students, right?
Yes, many of you have used.
Correct.
Yes, sir.
Correct. So this Bounce is also a very classic example of Government of Karnataka. They were part of the Elevate winners. So today they are valued more than 3,200 crores. That is the kind of scale. You can have an idea and you can come out with a very successful or a mature startup. So that is the kind of, these are the few examples. These are the few examples where today these startups are doing extremely well. They all came to the Government of Karnataka for the Elevate funding as a very concept or a very early stage or a very preliminary stage of their startups. Today they are all doing extremely good in their own sectors. So these are the few success stories we wanted to so please watch out for that funding on those areas. And then there is another initiative called Grant Challenge under the Government of Karnataka. So this is a very interesting. I think I would urge the JSS institution or the management also to keep looking for this. Every year government comes out with a challenge in a particular subject or domain. For example, the challenge one was on water and sewage management. So you can come out with a very interesting idea or a business case to solve the challenge. You get funding even to pilot it. And you get funding, and then once your pilot is also accepted, you get a grant of 50 lakhs later. So as a student or as an academic institution, you can still pursue as a grant challenge, give your best solution, come out with the best knowledge, a solution or a technology solution for this startup, and then you can fly as a startup as well. These are very important. So again, I would urge all of you to just keep a watch on these opportunities, you can say. And then yes, they do have other incentives and reimbursement, like patent. If you have filed a patent, you get a reimbursement. If you are granted a patent, you get a further incentives on up to 2 lakhs for Indian patents, up to 10 lakhs for international patents. So it's very interesting or very heartening for startups to get, because it's very important for startups to avail of this. This is one thing. And then marketing. As a startup, if you go and exhibit your startup idea for example, in a global or international forum, you get marketing cost covered under this program. So these are a few other incentives. There is a GST and a tax rebate which the government will subsidize for you if you are a startup. So these are a few things. And then on the funding. So what the Elevate or the idea to POC is for the small or early stage funding. Now the Government of Karnataka also has a government-owned VC fund. I said VC. I just run through about what is a VC, who are VCs, right? Similarly, for this VC, they have a dedicated funds. One is for biotech. There are 3 funds, which is in the scale of 50 crores to 100 crores. Similarly, for AVGC, that is the animation, visual effects, gaming, and comics. they have a fund of 20 crores corpus, and the Carsiman fund. This is the semiconductor venture capital. Up to 100 crore corpus, the government has it. So if you are a growth stage startup, again, this is for the growth stage startups, or startups who are promising, can go and get a government backed fund for them, instead of collateralizing your personal houses or any collateral. You don't need to do these things. If you're a promising startup, you can get a further promised the Kitwen fund, again basis on their evaluation and what stage are you in, what is your requirement, all those things will be assessed, but there is a fund. This is an opportunity again. So this is one thing. And then I also mentioned about the global innovation alliances. So you can see the green and the yellow listings, wherein so for the green means project specific partnership is there, and then for the yellow countries with the yellow listing, which has government to government direct connection. So if you need any support in UK or Switzerland or Sweden as a startup, government of Karnataka has a separate team which handles this global innovation alliances. So this is again an opportunity where startups can explore and conquer the global market as well. So, and just to say, I think, sir, here is what I wanted to get into the regulatory issue. I think one of the sir was mentioning about because of the regulations, you are not able to come out with the product or come out with the business. So the government of Karnataka recently came out, they promulgated a special act called Karnataka Innovation Authority Act, 2020. So this act specifically gives it's again a sandbox regulated environment. The act will actually has all the legal right to give you relaxation in any regulations or give you directions for any unclear regulations, wherein for a tested or a time bound tested period. For example, like let's take the classic example of Rapido. We all know when the Rapido came, the transport department said this is against, or the home department had their own objections. But the urban department said this is a great way to solve the traffic problem. But where is and there is no clear set, can bike be taxis? Can bike be taxis, or can bike act as a taxi? We don't have a clear law, or even if there is a clear law, those things exactly, authority has the permission to give you a relaxation for a time tested period. Then basis on your pilot or basis on your success story, then the government will further take it to amend the law itself. And this authority is headed by the Honorable Chief Minister. So it's a very high power committee, again supported by the Law Ministry and other departments. In convergence, this authority has been framed. Okay, so and the technical secretariat for this is the Department of ITBT KITS, Karnataka Information Technology Society. The KITS is the technical secretariat mandated to the act, and KDM, which I represent, is the implementation for this partner for this. So we will be happy to handle and help out in any regulatory issues faced by any startups or any innovators in order to come out with their business plan. So please feel free to reach out to us, sir. So we'll be happy to support on this angle. So this is one of the recent initiatives or opportunities where you can see from the government perspective. Similarly, on the vision group of startups, again, there is a dedicated vision group led only by the industries who advise to the government. So that is another initiative from the government. So these are, few of the things. So any questions here before I go to the last section of the startups or the session? Anyone else, or should we take it at the end if there any startups, and if any questions are there?
We'll take it at the end.
Sure. All right. So I thought, when we're talking about opportunities and challenges, again, it's very easy for any startup to make some mistakes, or how some mistakes can be avoided. So these are just snippets which I wanted to throw in for the benefit of the budding entrepreneurs or any entrepreneurs or any aspiring entrepreneurs here. One, do not rely on your network to find the talent. This is very important. Don't only look, because this could also be a confinement for your expectation. If you're starting a company, and if you want more people to add in or more team to add in, I'm not saying do not, I'm saying don't only rely on that. Okay, so this is one thing, because you might get a better or a further better resource or a quality teammate or a team member outside your network as well. So it's always good to collaborate and work as well. That is always a successful model. I can personally say from my student satellite experience, we networked with unknown people, but we did make it a success. It really works. This is through my personal experience as well. And don't neglect to set the right expectations or the timelines. So when you're starting a startup, don't say, okay, we are a startup, it's okay, we can take time, we can take sweet time. Well, anyway, we are startup, it's new for me also, okay, we'll take. No, don't get into that mindset. You need to be very clear. Even though if you're a startup, you need to be very, very clear about your expectations or the timeline along with your team members. There is this one. Third is, don't forget to give a great experience for your team. And just because you're a startup, you can do a lot of other special things for your team, right? So don't stop doing those things. Don't make it a very monologue or a monotonous or a very boring atmosphere for your teammates. Because for any startups, motivation is the key. The day a team member or you are demotivated, or even your motivation level is low, your entire pace of your business comes drastically low. Unlike other big, large corporates who establish, there are teams, even if one or two or one team doesn't function, there are other teams who backs and they can still the company grows, still the company sails through their plan. But this is not the case in the startups. So it's very important to create a great experience for your team members. That is one thing. And this is very, very important. Do not, because this is on a student perspective, I thought, because we have more students here as an audience, don't confuse your culture fit with the charisma. For example, a person might be extremely vocal or extremely energetic. He might be handling all your fests or all your or any cultural clubs or anything in that matter. Doesn't mean that he is the right fit for your startup. At the same time, I'm not demeaning it, but do not underestimate the resources or any people who does not have the so-called charisma or whatever, that they don't fit into your culture. No, do not have that prejudice or a bias. Do not go away, because you're a startup, you need to be open-minded. So don't have any prejudices. So that is another thing. The next is, don't be unclear on what you really want. Again, you need to have clarity. You need to absolutely have a clarity, because you are the founder, you are the startup, you are a partner, co-founder, or you are a team leader also in a startup. You need to know what exactly you need to deliver. So if you don't have anything, then you are definitely doing mistakes. So avoid these very, very important pointers or mistakes. And one, I think this is the last one on the don't hire for a single skill. Startups is always an all-rounder job. It is like, you are the CEO, also you are the lowest commander of the hierarchy. You also need to be able to serve a chai or a coffee or make a meal for the meeting. Also, you should be able to drive or head the entire conversation with the client or the vendor. So that is one thing. And again, when it comes to the skill part, do not go with only one skill. Have resources who can offer your multiple, who can take care of your multiple responsibilities or things. So these are few mistakes which I thought it's important for any students or any budding entrepreneurs to think if you're coming out with any startup. That is one thing. And this is my last slide. I thought I'll give you some small tips for any student or successful entrepreneur. One is seek for funding opportunities, look forward to it. And also another thing is also caution is, do not always go for funding unnecessarily. Only when you need funding, go for funding. Otherwise, don't go for any funding, because you will be in a trap or you will be unnecessarily diluting your stake for unnecessary reasons. So go for funding only when you require it, only when you need it. And also you need to have a calculated response. You need to properly strategize to it. And very important thing is make use of academic incubators. Academic incubators will be your first, like the handholders or a stop wherein you can understand quickly the kind of startup cycle or the journey, and then you could graduate yourself to a bigger VCs or bigger accelerators or incubators, the global also, So that is one thing. And then third one is very, very important. Create a strong network. Network is important, not just for your team, also for your clients or companies or anyone in that matter. That is important. Fourth, very obvious, very important, you should know your competitors. Without knowing competitors, do not jump into the business or a startup. because you will be lost in the race. You will be lost in the game. So you should know your competitors. You should also do research on your competitors. I mean, as much time or research what you do for your startup, you should also have a X number of time to research, or or you should spend your bandwidth to know your competitors as well. And then the last, Dr. Balu sir also rightly said, believe in yourself. This is the ultimate thing. This is the key thing. If you don't believe in yourself, you cannot run a startup. You cannot be a startup. So with this, I would like to probably close this. I think okay. I have one more slide. Be watchful of the opportunities. I mean, how many of you read this? This is an yesterday's news. Google announces a startup school to support 10,000 startups exclusively for tier 2, tier 3 cities. So I thought this is very important, where I can get this to the notice of all the people who are in the emerging tech clusters or the beyond Bengaluru regions. This is very important. So watch out. And then there is another called Campus Fund. This is a very interesting. Do more research on the Campus Fund. This is a Campus Fund which is again led by students. Again, they have raised X amount and they have launched, and they employ students as investors who scout, who evaluate, and who all these decisions. So explore more. So I thought I'll just give you a couple of examples, but be watchful of all the opportunities you see around. So with this, I will come to the end. And this is my contact details. If anyone has any doubts or clarification, if someone wishes to reach us out to me, we'll be happy to take it. Thank you. Any questions?
Thank you so much, sir. Thank you for enlightening us about the opportunities and challenges for startups in India. So we have a few questions. So the first question is, how should a startup founder combat lack of motivation?
See, without motivation, he cannot be a founder. It's very, very simple. I mean, having a desire or aspiration that, okay, I want to be a unicorn. I want to be the Elon Musk, or I want to be the Nitin Kamath, or, the Indian success stories. But if you don't have the motivation, you will not go far at all. This is our personal, we have seen a lot of startups closing their shop within 6 months or 1 year. They aspire to be the next, the unicorns or the founders or the successful startups, but they will just shut their shop in next 6 months or 1 year. So motivation is the key. That's very, very important.
Thank you, sir. The next question is, what are the usual sacrifices that a startup makes to comply with the unfavorable regulations and laws?
Can you little bit more elaborative on this? Because when you're talking about the government laws or something, see, when it is a law, first of all, it is unlawful if you're going to do something beyond that. I mean,
legal ways, sir.
Yes, legal ways. So it's not about sacrifice. You're not supposed to do it at all in that case. If there is a regulation in place, even though you have a $1 billion idea, for example, tomorrow I want to have a liquor delivery at home. Can I do it? If there is I mean, that is a very viable business model, right? Now people might pay much more than Swiggy or much more than anyone else. But, even my transaction cost could be double or equal amount to the the so-called banned activities or unlawful activities. So there, you're that's the end. I mean, if it is a law, you're end. I mean, you cannot go beyond that thing. So, but if you see if there is any important legal, regulatory, or unclear regulations, there is this new. What I mentioned was about the Karnataka Innovation Authority. That is always there. They are happy to look to the kind of relaxations you require in the regulations. And they would definitely oblige if if you have a very innovative, disruptive model. Like, for example, just to give you another anecdote or something, when Uber came here, the KSRTC or the department or the BMTC was the first one who created the objection. When the Ubers and the Olas initially came, then the RTO had to amend laws because this was a very disruptive, useful model in managing the urban traffic, and there were a lot of other regulatory aspects. How do we do it? But now, if any startups for such thing, Ola and Uber was one of the cases. But now there could be 100 or 10s or 20 such things. That is one of the reasons the government of Karnataka came out to relax and mind you, the relaxation is for the state laws only. I mean, government of Karnataka does not have the ambit or the to relax the central laws. So any state regulations which is coming into the hurdle or coming into the business challenges, government is happy to look and explore and give the relaxed laws.
Yes. Thank you, sir. And how to deal with stubborn investors?
Okay, this is an interesting question. Again, see, it depends on how confident are you on your product. As per that, you can negotiate yourself with the stubborn investors. Either you can say yes, or you can say no, or you can say thank you also if you believe in your thing. So, I mean, it's a choice of that time, and again, the timing of investment is also very, very, very important for any startup. So it's again, that is the challenges. I mean, if there was a secret sauce or recipe today, everyone would have been a unicorns. If it was like a one rule book or one template, if anyone wants to adopt it, then everyone would have been a unicorns or a multimillionaires today as a businessman.
Yes. And so one more question: how to build strong network with existing startups and entrepreneurs from college?
Oh, this is very important. Okay, so for this, what I would probably suggest is, reach out to all. I mean, reach out to certain other, similar institutions who are into the startup spaces. It's a collaborate. See, collaboration is the key. You cannot succeed without, working in silos. Okay, collaboration is the key. I mean, it's my personal experience again. Back in 2010, if I had waited only for one college to launch a satellite, it would never have happened. We collaborated with 7 academic institutions, 7 engineering colleges, and everyone came together. Everyone pulled in their resources, bandwidth, expertise, everything. Today, it was able to succeed. Otherwise, we would have been still struggling as one college or one university. It would be difficult. So collaboration is very, very important, and also utilizes all the platforms available for startups. Today, startups doesn't mean that there are so many startups for budding entrepreneurs or budding startups, also platforms for them. You don't need to be a registered entity. As Siddharth or as individual, you can go and register. So be watchful of opportunities. That's very important.
Thank you, sir. And we're open to questions from the audience as well. So if anyone has any questions, you can please ask.
Sir, coming back to the Rapido, now
Yes.
I think in couple of cities it is operating. So now is that that law has been amended at what, sir?
Sir, Rapido, I think there is a different, but not under this Karnataka Innovation Authority Act, because this is a new act which has come to the existence. But I think Rapido has got a separate clearances at the government level directly.
Okay. Thank you, sir.
But this is a platform. I urge all the innovators or all the disruptive startup owners or come and approach the authority. You will also get access if it is viable, if it is definitely a good viable model.
Sure. Thank you.
Yes, and I see Harshita Kumar has a question.
Yes. Good evening, sir.
Yes.
So nowadays in MNCs, there is a trend that they acquire the startups, and even when they feel that the startups will affect their business, but then that idea will be kept aside, and whatever the products they are there, that will be again in the market. So for the country like India, how will that ending up a idea and a business like that, where you are telling so much of funding will be done and everything? So in a growing country like us, if a startup is not getting that much encouragement into becoming it a full scale industry or a company, how will that affect our country?
See, this is again a very good question, and I would say, see, what happens here is, again, 2 types of market players will have an influence on such things. One, either they want to collaborate, they want to work together, also be in the business, or if they see they are a threat to their own business, they want to stop. That's why they hire. I mean, they capture the entire thing and then they shelf the entire idea. I mean, rightly what you said. But that will not go for a long run, I can say. That could be a temporary. The shelving is also will be temporary, because there is another startup which will come out and occupy the space. If there is already one business case which is working model, definitely, if it's a working model, definitely there is another startups who will, it may not realize today, after a month or after 2 months or after 1 year, they will see that vacuum and they will come. So they cannot keep suppressing or hiring and shelving. That will not go on a longer run. It won't delay. It might definitely delay for something. But that is nowadays that is what is happening. A lot of IPs and all are actually getting taken. I mean, the larger conglomerate buys off the IP, by paying either high price or either a dead cheap price, and they try to control. That is why all the governmental efforts to have all the innovation, including the Atmanirbhar kind of approach or any governmental schemes, are very, very important to sustain for the nation's economy or a growth as well. I mean, that is always there.
Thank you, sir.
Yes.
Excuse me, sir.
Yes.
Sir, nowadays, if you see, only tech-based startups are seeing more rather than the product or physical product industries. Is there any separate funding for the startups which will give industrial, which will provide the physical products?
Yes, Madhukar. There are a lot of things, because I think if you're saying if it is non-tech or not IT focused, either it will be in a manufacturing segment where you manufacture a lot of physical products or something. There are a lot of MSME schemes. There is a Department of Commerce and Industry which separately deal with such things. That is one thing. And also, I'll say now tech is the future. So any sector, tech is getting collaborated for their products. See, earlier the agriculture was an independent. There was no technology used. I mean, a farmer never used any technology, either in a physical, in their day-to-day, crop kind of a thing, or in terms of monitoring. But today, you have everything. You have a small IC embedded in the soil, and it will tell you what is the moisture, or do you need watering or not, or it will tell what is the health of the soil. I mean, so that is the kind of tech aggregation is happening. So tech is the future. I mean, it definitely will collaborate. But if you're looking into the non-IT or a non-digital economy space, it is the Department of Industries or MSMEs also do have, and a lot of banks have a lot of funding or collateral base, because it is a manufacturing something. Banks do have a lot of schemes for that.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you so much, sir. And now I would like to call upon Dr. Manjunath Aradhya to do the...
Okay. Thank you very much, sir. Chetan DIxit, sir, for your talk on opportunities and challenges for startups in India. And no doubt, sir, really it inspired and motivated many of the students and the young faculty members here in JSSSTU. So you covered many of the good things, with starting with the defining the startups and the very importantly the ecosystem, and also what sectors, emerging sectors in startups and stages of startups, life cycles, and quite importantly with respect to the issues and challenges of the entrepreneurships, startup serves, benefits of stages, and very importantly, of course, very keen to know about the initiatives of the government of Karnataka. So once again, thank you very much, sir, for your time and talk, sir. I wholeheartedly thank on behalf of IIC and JSSSTU. Thank you very much, sir, for your talk. Also, I thank all the participants who attended this workshop. And once again, I thank all the members, IIC members, and also I thank our Dean Research, Honegada sir, for arranging this. Thank you very much, sir.
Chetan, excellent talk. Thank you so much.
So thank you so much, and I would personally like to thank you, for giving me this opportunity, and it's with heartfelt gratitude, because I know when you were at the KCA, the kind of support you had offered for our satellite days, it was so heartening to connect back, and we'll be happy to support any of the initiatives which the university or the department would like to take in. And KDM, and on behalf of KDM also, I assure that we are always available for anything which for any innovative things you come out with. We'll be happy to collaborate and support, sir.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Thank you.
Thank you for all the participants.
Thank you, Chetan, sir.
Thank you, sir. Thank you
very much.
Thank you all.